Now, I have a question. How many of you knew or know that women in the film industry were not allowed to be makeup artists on set till not so long ago? Please raise your hand if you knew this. You knew this? How many didn't know? So that's me included. Most of us just assumed that there could be no gender discrimination in something like doing makeup. So you're going to be astounded to know that one woman actually had to go all the way to the Supreme Court to fight for the right for women to be makeup artists. So you know when they say you don't need affirmative action, gender doesn't matter, the hoops you have to jump through just to get an opportunity to do your job. That's something to think about today. Our next session is on breaking barriers in Bollywood and opening the door for women all across the industry. Let me please first welcome Charu Khurana, a makeup artist who fought for the right of women to be makeup artists and won that battle. Charu, can we please have you walk through the door? A really dogged battle in the court. And no one even knew that this was not permissible. And another very, very strong voice for women in the industry, a producer, a filmmaker, Pooja Shetty. Pooja Shetty is out with the Zoya Factor later this year, is a friend of the festival. Pooja, can we please have you on stage as well? So before I introduce the moderator, just to stand here, Charu, I just want to ask you, no one here even knew कि ये possible नहीं था, कि जो औरतें हैं, उनको ये हक नहीं था. तो क्या होता था? पहले क्या होता था, Charu?
The women were not allowed to do makeup. सिर्फ हेयर ड्रेसेस के लिए उनको परमिशन दी जाती थी that they can do only hair. तो जितना भी हम लोग सेट्स में जो हम ब्यूटीफुल एक्ट्रेसेस को सब देखते थे वो सब जो उनका काम होता था वो एक मेल एक्ट्रेस का होता था. And you know, to earn your livelihood as a makeup artist in the creative world, women were not allowed. You were not allowed to be registered in the makeup union as a makeup artist. And you were deprived of your livelihood. तो ऐसा लगता था कि you know, आप अपने काम को represent नहीं कर रहे. और जहाँ तक beauty का सवाल है, we always associate beauty with women, you know. We think about blushes, we think about lipsticks, we always associate ourselves with, you know, a woman is going to beautify herself. But when I got into the industry and when I wanted to be a part of this entertainment industry, I was not allowed. I was said that you need to pack your bags and go back home. This is not your place. You cannot do makeup in the industry. And it used to sound very weird to me. And I used to talk to different producers, directors, you know. This kind of a rule is existing.
And no one stood up for you?
And nobody stood up. And something, you know, when I read the Bible, when I used to ask questions, they used to say it is registered under the labor union, you know, it is registered under the Maharashtra government. You know, it used to be like, you know, what all things I've studied in, you know, my civic sense, and, you know, my rights and, you know, right to living and all that, where are all these rights gone? So, you know, it was shocking and frustrating to me. And then I thought, you know, we all need to do something about it.
And you went all the way to the Supreme Court?
Yes, because I had no other job. I was not an MBA. I had to earn my living, you know, out of something.
And did you feel lonely in that battle?
Yes, I did. There was nobody. When I used to talk about other makeup artists, they used to say, "Madam, बहुत पैसा खर्च होएगा, Supreme Court में जाएंगे, fight करेंगे. You know, 5,000 union का member है. Who's going to, you know, fight for them? You know, cases लंबा जाता है. Police, you know, police में you can't register an FIR. You cannot register a complaint. It's a legal battle. You know, you have to work your ways. It took me 14 years to fight this battle in Supreme Court.
And she kept her nerve. 14 years for the right of women to be makeup professionals in the film industry here in Mumbai. Fantastic. Pooja, can I ask you to come in? What's the toughest thing about being female in an industry where the men never age, by the way? I don't know when Salman, Shah Rukh and Aamir will stop sort of romancing girls who are 18. 17, okay, sorry.
Yeah.
What's the toughest thing about being female in the industry?
I think, Barkha, for example, our film, The Zoya Factor, it's a female protagonist. And I think finding the money to make these films has been tough historically. But in the recent couple of years, we've seen studio heads, and a lot of them now are women, who are supporting filmmakers and are supporting content that has women. For example, there was Meghna Gulzar made Razi.
Yeah.
You know, Fox Star Studio, Rucha Pathak made Nirja. Fox is supporting The Zoya Factor.
But how much has changed?
I think it's changing slowly. I don't think it's a massive change at this stage, and I don't think you're seeing blockbuster female protagonist films as yet. But I think it has started, the process has started. Male leads are also understanding that supporting a film like a Bridget Jones or a Zoya Factor doesn't make them lesser than the woman. And for example, we're working with our lead actor is Dulquer Salman, very clever, very understood the material really well, unlike some of the people in the Hindi film industry, and realized that if a woman is in love with you and wants to be with you, it actually puts him in a slightly better place than you know, than some of the Hindi film actors thought of his role.
And the pay gap, very quickly before I bring on our moderator.
So our actors in our film are paid the same.
Good for you. And I do think that I wish more of our men followed the example from Hollywood, where some men have now stopped working in films unless their female co-stars are paid as much. Introducing our moderator now, she has a fascinating new book called Change Makers, which she's co-authored with Malika Kapoor. Full disclosure, I was at Columbia Journalism School with both Gayatri Rangachari Shah and Malika, so they're old friends. But their book is really worth reading, Change Makers, on the lives of women breaking barriers in the film industry. Gayatri, can I please welcome you on stage for what should be a fascinating conversation?
Thank you all. It's wonderful to have a packed house on a Sunday morning. It just shows that, you know, this We the Women is so widely respected and well received. So Barkha asked some very pointed questions already, but I just want to start by maybe giving some kind of a historic context to this question around breaking barriers in Bollywood. And Pooja, I'd like to start with you. You, of course, you both come at the industry from very different perspectives. You are an insider, and you know, you've grown up and seen the industry up close. What has changed for you?
Gayatri, I've not been an insider forever. You know, my family was involved in more art house movies and what used to be called back in the days parallel cinema. So we were not in the commercial entertainment, you know, in that world really. And we interacted with filmmakers and we got a sense that for them making films was really everything they ever wanted to do. It was very, very passion driven. There may or may not have been much commerce involved in it. Most of them were losing money. So it was a struggling base of people. But from my perspective, and I've been involved in this now, I've spent my 20s really being a part of Ad Labs, which was a studio, but I was only building cinema, so I wasn't really involved in the creative space. And then in my 30s, I was building the theme park, and now is when we're saying that we want to stay focused on creating content. And the change that I've seen over the last many years, because I've been involved at various stages, is that it seems to be far more organized than it used to be. And I think I'm an optimist here, and I feel like I know actors who were in the movies 15 years ago, and there was no luxury, there was no support. It was very difficult for them to be actors even. I also know that screenplay, you know, a lot of films were getting self-funded, so people with money were funding films, and the distribution piece was not organized. So there was a lot of, it was very difficult. I think now it was difficult to raise finances. There were fewer studios. I think now, you know, from your screenplay writing, everything gets organized better. It goes through so many channels before it actually gets on screen that your material gets vetted multiple times. It's not like you're writing your scenes on location. It's not like you're writing dialogues on. I think it is far more professionalized. I think there are lots of women as studio heads right now. There's a lot of different kinds of content being made.
The increase in professionalization is one of the that women are in the business because the industry has become more professionalized. I mean, you know, I think 25 years ago, if a girl wanted to join the business, not just in front of the camera, but behind the scenes in any of being a producer or anything, the challenges seemed far greater than perhaps they seem today. Would you agree with that?
I think so. I think it was disorganized. Like I said, once it becomes a self-funding model, then you're literally not just involved in the screenplay and the shooting of the film, but you're involved in the marketing and distribution. And these are channels that are not clear. There's a lot of gray in there. While with the way it is structured right now, as producers, you focus on the content, you focus on making the film, and then you leave it to the people who understand distribution that actually makes the film, reach people. And that's a far more difficult job than actually making the film as well.
Yeah, but you are one of two sisters. Yes. And when both of you sisters decided to join the business, was your family, were your parents encouraging, or were they taken aback? How did they react?
I don't think we paid attention. No, I don't think so. I think for both Aarti and me, I think we were interested in the process of making the films. Our first few films were self-funded, and we realized that it's not just about your own personal conviction. It also depends on how the film gets marketed and distributed, and you need to be a part of the system. And I think what that also does is it puts several checks and balances in the kind of content that you want to make. You're not just doing something that you think is amazing, but you need to make sure that you've proved it to the studio, to the actors. So by the time you get to actually making the film, hundreds of people have been through the material, and I think your conviction only gets stronger and better.
Charu, you of course are a complete disruptor. As Barkha said, what you have done is so historic and monumental. I think the women of this country will applaud you for time to come. How did you feel on November 14th? I mean, it's 4 years ago, right, on the steps of the Supreme Court when Justice Deepak Mishra read out that verdict?
A feeling of contentment was there, that yes, from today onwards, I can put my head on my shoulders and earn my livelihood. I don't have to hide myself in caravans or in the hotel's makeup room and give credits of my work to any other male member of the union.
So listen, tell us, the audience doesn't know about this. Charu, tell us about the kinds of things you had to do in order to be able to do your work at a time when you were not allowed to do work as a
when you are not the member of the union, you're not allowed to be on the set to represent your work. So I used to do makeup in caravans, hide myself behind them, or do makeups in the hotel rooms. And I used to hire a male member of the union and a female hairdresser who were member of the unions. And I used to share my salary to them. 40% of my salary I used to shell out from my pocket so that I can earn a bit of livelihood for myself.
Even when you were doing all the work?
When I was doing all the work, all the makeup, everything was mine, but the credits for all the movies has gone to the members of the union. So, it was so difficult for me to, represent my work. And finally, when the day came, it was so satisfying that, now women, I can see other makeup, other, girls like me can have the opportunity to be a part of the industry and to earn their livelihood. And, they had such a weird rules. The union was discriminating on the basis of gender. They were discriminating on the basis of state you belong to. They had the weird issue where they said that you have to be a domicile for Maharashtra for 15 years if you want to work in the industry. So, we were like, it was for me like, we are dividing our own country amongst the state. And, if you're from North, you cannot work in South. I was thinking about what is the talent? If you're talented, and you have everything, why is that you're not able to earn a livelihood? For me, it was like women needs to have empowerment. This is about women empowerment, educating women to step out of their house and earn their livelihood, and it's about economics development of a country. For me, it was very important that now women can come forward and earn their livelihood.
And there was age discrimination also, right?
Yes, they had an age discrimination that you only had to be less than 25 to enter the trade.
Which is so bizarre.
Was so weird, like it's a form of art you want to practice. Makeup is all about creativity. It's not about the age barriers. For me, to fight all this was like, thank God, that I have done my bit of contribution to make this place a better, workplace for every other woman.
So I want to ask both of you this question. We are, all of us who are not in the industry, we've heard this growing up, we continue to hear it. Is Bollywood an all-boys club, or are things really changing?
Like I said, I think things are changing. Like Barkha said, there are 50-year-olds romancing 17-year-olds, but I think it's moved beyond that. I think we have to look at it today from the point of view that we're all watching global content. Right. We all need to get our act together. I think that process has already begun. We've got large OTTs that have entered India. They want to talk to Indian consumers. They are going to need to work with professionals in the movie making, series making space, we've got to get our act together, and that's not going to happen by just being an all-boys club. You are going to need to bring the women in because everybody's got their own share of creativity and a voice that they want to lend to this medium.
And they're 50% of the audience.
Of course. So. And actually in Hollywood there are studio heads that are saying that we want to specifically only talk to the 50% because that's enough for us, that's enough business for us. So I feel like leaving any section out today is not going to be okay. And that change I see that, like I said, out of the few studios that we've got, there are 3 studio heads that are women who are deciding which film needs to go on the floor and what it needs to cost, and they're fully involved in the process. And you can see that their works have been successful. So
right, and you can see a change in content that's being produced.
The kind of films that they're choosing are entertaining, but they have their biopics and they are relevant and they're important stories that need to be told. So I think they're following. They understand this and they're doing a really good job. So I think we're in a good place today. It may not be amazing, but we're still getting there. We need to, if we have to compete globally.
As you said, you're an optimist. Yeah. And Charu, what about you? You, of course, face discrimination, head on. And you've said that you didn't really encounter very much support. So tell us a little bit about that and whether you think that, it continues to be an all-boys club or whether things are improving.
Earlier, I used to think, I used to believe it's all-boys club, because women were not allowed to be there. Right. And I had spoken to so many directors, actors, and, where I wanted to convince them, let's do something about it. Let's change this, Let's work towards, how can we change the bylaws which have been like 60 years old, let's work upon that. And not many people at that time had come to that support, except a few, like Kamal Hassan, he was really very supportive, Anushka Shetty, she was really supportive all throughout. The few actors to name, where they supported, and there are few, who just said, it's your battle, you need to fight it.
Wow, so they literally said that to you.
Yes.
And
we have to be practical, when we talk about a movie, shooting for a day, 1 day of, production, shooting is about lakhs and crores of rupees. Right. So actually they don't want to, waste that 1 day of actor's date, that 1 day of renting out the studio for just that one person, one makeup artist on set. So they would rather, make out some easy way out.
Yeah, it's a financial consideration.
Consideration, yeah.
Not so much about not wanting to, it's just that they need to get the job done.
They just need to get the job done. And, we all have commitments, actors are not doing only one film a year, they have multiple, commitments. So, for, stopping the shoot or, holding on for one person, it's not practical.
Right.
So, I had to fight my own battle for that.
Okay, let me ask it to you in a different way. Even to file your initial FIR in the police station in Bombay, was a huge challenge. The police told you to basically go home.
I had to bribe 10,000 rupees for that matter. To write an FIR.
To file the FIR.
To file an FIR. Nobody was visiting my FIR, So I had to pay money to get my complaint registered, because if I go to any, government authorities, whether it's a national commission, even I have to take any case, the first question they'll ask me, have you registered your complaint? Have you registered? If I don't have anything on papers, that means I'm not true. It's not happening. So, I had to shell out money and, I had to fight. I had to be in the police station for 10 hours to make sure.
You had to pay a bribe to file the initial FIR against the union.
I did.
And do you think if this was today, if you had to go, do you think that things have improved even on the ground level, that if you had to go and file an FIR today, that perhaps things would be different? Or are you?
I really don't think so. I think if you have to find your legal battles, the situations are still the same. It's not easy. But yes, when it comes to seeing how the industry have evolved, yes, there are 5,000 women who have already registered as makeup artists now. So it's a huge change, where there was 4 years back, not even a single woman who was being entitled to work. And today there are 5,000 women working.
So tell us some of the challenges that continue to exist. I know that you and I have spoken about the exorbitant union fees.
Yes, after the day I had won my case in my favor, initially the fees was for 5,000 rupees. To join as a makeup artist. Now they have, put a hefty amount of 1 lakh rupees to be a member of a union, which I still feel it's unfair. Nobody should be given that, that only if you'll pay ₹1,00,000, you'll be a member to a union. It should be open to everyone. What about, a girl coming from a remote village or, somebody who's not financially very strong wants to enter the profession? You need a backup for ₹1,00,000. Who's going to pay that 1,00,000?
And this 1,00,000 is for both men and women.
Yeah, it's for both men and women. And, it's for one category. If you want to be a makeup artist, you need to pay 1,00,000. Again, if you want to be a hairdresser, so you have to pay another 1,00,000, which I feel is very unfair. I really would like to take up this cause and, make sure, things are better off for all of us.
So the next thing we have to do is make you the head of the makeup union.
I would love to, and, I'll make sure that, I do my level best and bring up the technical knowledge, skills which is required to, from time to time we need to update ourselves. So that technical knowledge and the skills we all need to share with each other. So.
And speaking of challenges, Pooja, as a producer, and what are the challenges you face, and do you feel your gender might amplify those challenges?
So, like I said, I don't think, the way my sister and I like to think of this is, there are challenges at every stages of trying to make a feature film. It needs to go through various channels, various processes. It needs to be cast for it to get a budget. So there's a lot of chicken and egg that goes on. It just helps to hone your craft a little better. It helps to stick with your material, try and make your material better. But I think I don't think it's gender related really. I think we like to think of it as, if it's good quality work, then whether it's a man or a woman, it should get cleared.
So as a woman producer, you don't feel raising financing is, it's as challenging for you as it would be?
It is challenging, Gayatri. It is extremely challenging. I think we've had, it takes up a lot of time. Sometimes a couple of years go by before you can find the right partner to make your film.
Like the Zoya factor.
Yeah, it's taken us 9 years.
9 years.
Yeah, we've gone.
And do you think that's because of the content?
I think it's partly because of the book material itself. Like I said, it has a female protagonist, so it takes much longer for someone to say, okay, we think this film can do a certain amount at the box office, which is why we think we'll be able to fund it.
So do you think having a woman lead in a story...
There was no other way to do it. So
no, but is that still an issue? Getting financing for a movie that's basic...
It is still an issue if it doesn't get helmed by a credible actor, female, who will be able to bring in the box office numbers. It's still not going to happen with someone who the studio doesn't believe is going to he's going to pull in the audience. So I think that challenge still remains, which is why I think a lot of good quality material may not get made, but that's also the nature of the business. Why will someone want to invest in something that people are not going to come and see? So that you have to take with a pinch of salt. But if your material is good and the studio believes in it, and you're able to cast well, I think it takes time. So it's not easy, but I don't think it's gender related. I think it's, my sister and I, we are making the Zoya Factor now. Before this, we made a film called Rita, which was based on Shanta Gokhale's book called Rita Velinkar, and Renuka Shane was a female director, first time director, and we had Pallavi Joshi playing the main lead. That was a self-funded film because there was no way we were going to be able to raise money for that. So there are challenges, but again, I think we are naturally gravitating to a certain kind of films, very subconsciously. I don't think we're doing it as some people would say, let's try and focus our development on finding material that is specific to women and women empowering stories, etc. I don't think we're doing it consciously yet.
So you're not doing the Reese Witherspoon model?
We're not doing the Reese Witherspoon model yet. But we're not averse to it. I think the stuff that we've done so far has naturally happened. Our objective is that we'd like to find something that excites us, which we think is entertaining, and which we think people will want to go and watch. So when you have to check so many boxes, the development process is much harder.
Right. Well, on that note, I'd just like to open it up to the audience, and if there are any questions, because I can see this timer sort of going off. Okay, we have a question in the back and then a question in the front. There's a gentleman in the back in the blue shirt.
Hi. We say that there's a union, for makeup artists. Why don't you make a women's union, and just get rid of this overall, the general union that you have? Like, let all the men go off. We'll have our separate women's union, period.
Yeah, but that has to be registered under the mother body, right?
Correct.
So ultimately, the rules have to be same for everyone.
No, but I think when maybe don't have a very good insight, but you know, you could at least dictate terms as far as your own union is concerned. You, like the fees.
But the union, I think, has to be registered. It has to be registered with the Maharashtra.
And, you know, it has to, the mother body has to be same. It has to be passed through the Federation of, you know, the South Indian cinema industry. So.
Western
yeah, Western cinema.
And I don't know if the answer is really to have gender-specific unions.
Yeah, but why to have gender-specific union, you know? Why can't we just be abide by the law of the land?
Correct,
yeah.
Exactly. We had a question in the front.
Hi, I'm Daya. My question is, you were telling that a lot of movies with strong women roles are coming up on the forefront now. Is it because our society's notion of who should be the lead and what sort of movies we enjoy is changing? Is it one? Or two, as an industry, has Bollywood grown to acknowledge that women can bring equal box office numbers as a male protagonist?
That's a very good question. Pooja.
I think some examples like I've given with Neerja and with Razi in the recent past where they've done really well at the box office. These are confidence building steps that are happening for the movie industry. I don't think we're at a stage where we don't recognize that female protagonist features can be successful if the quality of the content is good. So I think all of that has been established by some of the filmmakers and actors that have done this work in the past. So it is going to steamroll into much more work, but I don't think it is still at a stage where it's equal to some of the other male-led successful films. We're still maybe doing 1/3 of those kinds of potential numbers, but we have to give ourselves a pat on the back saying that at least they've done 100 crores each, if not more, and it's a great start. And people and audience are going in to watch movies that are interesting, entertaining, different concepts, and they want to see inspiring and impactful stories. So I think that trajectory is on. We just have to find the right stories for it.
I'm sorry, I'm always this party pooper on the stage because just when we're getting deep into a conversation, it's time to move on to the next one. But I know you'll all agree that there's so many more interesting stories to be told. Before we actually say thank you to Gayatri, Pooja and Charu, I know you'll all agree that Charu Thakur deserves to be honored for her 14-year-old battle. Charu Khurana, I beg your pardon. Charu Khurana needs to be honored for her 14-year-old battle to be a makeup artist, not just for herself, but for all women. Can we please have the Her Award on stage and ask Pooja and Gayatri to honor Charu with this award? 14 years for the right of women just to do their job. I think it's extraordinary, and we can do better than that as an audience. A bigger round of applause, come on. Fantastic.
This is for all of you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.